Guys, did you hear the news from Goldman Sachs? They're projecting the S&P 500 is only going to return 3% annualized for the next 10 years. What should we do, everybody? Oh my God, I should put all my money in treasuries now. Welcome back to Strongman Personal Finance. So, as always happens, a institution publishes data that says this is what we expect returns to be for a certain asset class over the next 10 years. And people take that and they say, well, it's Goldman Sachs, and Goldman Sachs is like a big bank and it's full of smart people. And, you know, the S&P 500 has just blown it out of the water over the last 15 years. And it kind of makes sense that the S&P 500, could potentially return 3% annualized over the next 10 years, which is possible. And because of that, I need to take some action. I need to rebalance my portfolio. Maybe I should go all in international, or maybe I should just buy treasuries. I can lock in a 10-year treasury at, I don't know what they're freaking paying, 3 or 4%, and basically get the same returns as the S&P 500, right? That's kind of the logic people do. They find a source to justify an action they've been thinking about doing, or the fear that comes in from lower expected returns kind of drives them away from the stock market and convinces them to do something that may be deleterious. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Bad for their long-term investment success. Well, first of all, you need to learn as an investor, every institution out there is full of freaking crap. Nobody freaking knows the future. People that pretend to know the future will say things with confidence, and they'll use their credentials to convince you that they know what they're talking about for the sole purpose of extracting money from you in order to make money for themselves at your expense. That is the entire finance industry. Now, Goldman Sachs' motivation, maybe they actually believe that the S&P 500 is going to return 3% annualized. That's one thing, okay? But another thing is, if you write something like that, you're going to perk up a lot of interest. People are going to want to read your article. It's good marketing for Goldman Sachs, okay? That's one thing. But you got to be careful, because if you look in the past, like go back 10 years, see if you can pull up old articles from Vanguard, or, you look up anything. S&P 500 projected returns. Go look 10 years in the past. Go use the Wayback Machine, or if you know how to use Google properly, do that. And you'll see that 10 years ago, so 2014, a lot of people would have said the same thing. The S&P is going to, be flat. The S&P 500 is going to be negative. The S&P 500 X, Y, and Z. There's going to be 1,001 opinions. And whatever opinion you have, you can find in the past. And the problem with that is that somebody out there is right. There's all these institutions publishing this. Oh, we think U.S. stocks are going to do this. We think U.S. stocks are going to do that. Somebody out there is going to be right at the end of the day. But the problem is you don't know who's right. 10 years is a long freaking time. I was 25 years old 10 years ago. I just got promoted to captain, actually right around this time in the Army. 10 years ago, okay? Did I say 2014? Yeah, 2014. Now it's still first lieutenant. But my life was way different back then. Totally different life. 10 freaking years is a long time. And for you to take an action now for something that may or may not come true 10 years from now is incorrect. Stop thinking about investing as your returns. And I know that sounds really weird. Okay, that sounds really, really off. But how I think of investing is not my future returns. I don't really care, because I'm going to get the market return. That's what I'm going to get net of fees. I'm going to obviously pay expense ratios and taxes and all that. But I'm basically going to get the global market's return. I'm a global investor. I believe in global diversification, and I believe you buy the world and you own it forever. That is my opinion. Sue me if you don't like it. But I don't say, oh, I think I'm going to get I want to get 10% so I can get this and that and that. How I think is I'm going to get the market's return, whatever it may be. If the S&P 500 does do 3%, I'm still globally diversified outside the S&P 500, but I'm still going to stay with the S&P 500 because I want to acquire as much of the world as I possibly can. All the publicly traded companies in the world that are investable. I want to own as big a share of that as possible because those companies generate profits and companies return profits to the shareholders through a variety of mechanisms, okay? Dividends, share buybacks, paying off debt, which increases earnings per share, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's there's a lot of ways companies can return profits to you. They can reinvest it into the business, grow the value of the business, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when I reach the end of my working years, which could be never. I mean, when I say if I ever retire, if I ever announce my retirement on YouTube, what that means is I don't have a full-time job. But I'm always going to do something. I don't like to sit there. I'm not just going to sit there and do nothing. But when I do reach my retirement, what I'm going to have in my portfolio is what I'm going to have. I have a logical strategy based on reason that I'm implementing. Every time I get money, I buy VT. Buy VT, buy VT, buy. And I'm accumulating as much of the world as possible. And what I have after I get the market's return at the end of my working years is what I have. And I'm going to have to make do with what I have. And if I don't have enough, I'm going to have to keep working. And if I do have enough, then I can quit my full-time job and do whatever I want to freaking do. But that's what you need to focus on, is buying as much of the world as possible. Because 30 years from now, let's say I own, just for craps and giggles. Obviously I don't own 1% of the global market cap. But let's say I own 1% of the world. Well, 1% of the world is going to work every day and, generating profits for their corporations. And the board is deciding, do we declare a dividend, this, that, and that. And they're going to give me money as a partial owner of the business as 1% of the world. And by owning 1% of the world, that's mine. That's what I can get. I'm participating in the capitalist system where people are working for me because I'm the partial owner of those businesses. And that's all that matters, okay? Stop worrying about returns. Pick a strategy. I think stocks are probably best for the long run. Okay, bonds, I just don't like bonds. They could still be volatile, and they're probably going to get eroded by inflation. Stick with stocks as a majority of your portfolio. Okay, maybe transition to bonds as you get older. And then what you're going to have is what you're going to have. You're going to have the market return, and most people will not have the market return. You will win, and you will be better off than most people by focusing on accumulating as much of the world as you can. That's what matters. If I have $2 million in retirement, well, by golly, I can live off $2 million, or I'm going to find a freaking way to do it. And if I can't, so be it. If I have $4 million, great. If I have $20 million, great. But you can only do what you can do. And you can only acquire as much of the world as you can acquire. And that's what you have to live with. So stop worrying about, what are my returns going to be? Oh my God. You're going to get shooken out of the stock market. You're going to be scared. You're going to do something stupid. You don't want to do that. You want to own as much of the world as possible. That is your only goal, and you'll stick to it. Bear market, bull market, flat market, doesn't freaking matter. Buy. Dollar cost average, dollar cost average, dollar cost average. And in the end, you'll get the market return, and you'll probably be better off than most people. It's worked for me. Okay, I've lost money. I've been divorced, lost money, half my money at one point, and I'm still freaking here where I'm at. Okay, and I'm not saying I'm super rich, but I've done pretty freaking good. And I just did one thing. I focused on how much I was investing into a good portfolio that I know I can stick with. That's what matters. Okay? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you want a sponsored video for $50, I'll do a video about whatever you want to talk about. I don't do valuations. I don't do stock price predictions. If you want to talk to me one-on-one, you want to talk to me face-to-face, see the pinned comment below. And if you want accounting tutoring, you can also book that. Check out my book, Stop Being a Broke Loser, and have a wonderful day. Cheers!